Go for it.
Aloha, snack bar, everyone. It's the one, the only, the silverback, the one that is none other than the V, joined by the uncanny producer CJ, and we are here live with a special guest. He is been a contributor to Rogue Bunny for a few months now, but he hasn't got his chance to shine. So we wanted to roll out the carpet for none other than the Prince. Welcome aboard, sir. How are you? And welcome to this wonderful program. What's going on?
Thank you. I appreciate the red carpet, and
Absolutely.
and yeah, it's a pleasure to finally be able to talk shop on the air. There's a lot shaking in the sandbox right now, and I don't know
Absolutely.
where to begin.
I mean, yeah, that is the question. That is the question, my man. Like, where do we begin? I mean, in terms of like, what the heck's going on in the Middle East? You're like the James, the Russian analyst, but of the Middle East. So, so wherever you want to begin, I guess we can start with the House of Saud because that seems to be the nexus around which the entire sandbox is swirling.
Well, the House of Saud may soon be the Cottage of Saud.
Oh,
They, I think everything pivots around what happens in Yemen. The choices that are made in Yemen are going to make or break the House of Saud, and uh, Trump's foreign policy is obviously, bellicose towards Iran and
right,
continuing to keep our long-term ally of Saudi Arabia.
yeah,
And I can only hope we don't get dragged into Yemen as deep as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has become. They are at a deficit for the first time in a long time.
yeah.
Uh, they may even have to tax their their citizens, which would not go over well. Now, with King Salman being the youngest of the whole succession of brothers, and Mohammed bin Nayef being the crown prince, um, that's he's not going to take the throne.
Right.
It's really up to King Salman and his favorite son, who has been, you know, making his rounds and pretty much letting the world know that he will be, not only is he the youngest minister of defense as of right now, but he will succeed his father as his father's favorite son
Right.
and be the next king of Saudi Arabia at the ripe old age of 30 something, whenever King Salman decides to pass the torch.
Right.
Um, the whole thing with Yemen is oil, like most wars,
Mm.
and what what Mohammed bin Salman has been going around with his whole vision of Saudi 2030, trying to diversify their portfolio, wean
Yeah.
them off of oil,
Can you,
and use a
Prince? Can you flesh out for the audience what Saudi Vision 2030 is? Because I don't think people get that. This is like probably the first time that the majority of people are even hearing it.
okay. Yes, it really hasn't reached our news outlets. It's basically trying to take the blueprint that the United Arab Emirates has used and diversify into different diversify their portfolio and not rely 90% on oil. The United Arab Emirates has done so swimmingly. Abu Dhabi is the only emirate that has any oil, and Dubai has become the, I don't know what to call it, but it is
the financial hotbed. It's basically the tech center of the Middle East. It's the IT center of the Middle East. It's turning into the media center of the Middle East. It's really diversified. It's a banking conglomerate.
It's the only modern place in the Middle East. They're very tolerant.
Yeah.
Sharjah excluded. And they are on the cutting edge of, finance, research and development, media. That they have really made it easy for business to set up shop there. And now the Saudi Arabians want to use that blueprint and take it, and with this Vision 2030, diversify and entice other, foreign venture capitalists and companies to come to the kingdom and invest in things besides oil. However, really, what they want to do first and foremost is stop their citizens from going to Dubai and going to Monaco and other countries to spend their money. And because Saudi Arabia is so strict with Sharia law, wealthy Saudis like to get away and, play and have a good time and have vacations, and they go to the Emirates to do that. And, they're losing a lot of money that they could or are trying to keep in-house.
Right.
That's one facet of it. They're building a Six Flags Great Adventure. They're trying to get into more theme parks, but the UAE blueprint will not work in such a rigid country with such strict adherence to Sharia law. So that aside, there is the Al Noor City project, which is really the crux of Vision 2030, and that is pretty much at the heart of the Yemeni conflict, although it is also, a proxy war between Iran and the Sunni Salafist Wahhabist states of the Gulf region. But it basically boils down to building the Al Noor City project.
And could you describe for us what the Al Noor City project is, so the listeners will understand what, because it's so key, man. When you explained it to me, you kind of filled in for me the missing puzzle piece of why all the shenanigans is happening with the House of Saud.
Well, the House of Saud has been fracking the Gawar well, their biggest, mother lode of oil wells. And they haven't let anyone come in to audit their oil holdings in years. And with the Gawar well being fracked, you can only assume that, it's not producing the sweet crude at the rate that it used to. And the Saudis have other, wells, but nothing like the Ghawar well. And with Yemen so close, right across the, right across the strait of to Aden, they are such a poor country. Yemen, they have lots of oil that has not been tapped, and they don't have the resources to refine it. So what the House of Saud wants to do is put in a Sunni puppet government that is pro-Saudi into office in Yemen, and allow them to build a pipeline from Yemen through Djibouti directly to the refineries in Saudi Arabia, where they can refine the sweet crude that Yemen cannot afford to refine themselves.
Sure.
And therefore, be able to start pumping, if they need to, start to pump oil at the rates that Iran is, which would be a mistake because there's a glut of oil on the market. But who knows? Maybe they just want to have that oil to sit on. But the ramifications of the Al Noor City project, it's a 15-year project. It's estimated to be $200 billion.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a bridge linking Asia to Africa via the southern end of the Red Sea over a bridge called the Bridge of Horns, which will span the mouth of the Red Sea.
Wow.
And there's going to be one city in Yemen and one city in Djibouti. The Twin Cities, as they are called, are supposed to run on renewable energy. Vision 2030 is really trying to be, as far as their public image as a renewable energy city, very green, and trying to get away from oil. But that's not going to happen. Many Africans have raised concerns, especially the United Arab Emirates, that why put it in this location? There's other locations where there's access to fresh water and food, and it's going to make Dubai redundant in a lot of ways as far as being a deep water port in that area. Yeah. So it's really going to continue the rift between the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and the whole conflict in Yemen is supposedly, to go after Al Qaeda on the Arab Peninsula, which is true. They have a very strong foothold in Yemen, probably their strongest foothold in the region, maybe outside of Mosul. But the Yemen has a history, just like Afghanistan, of where empires go to die, and
right.
It's not going to be an easy in and out. 6 months. Well, it's already been 2 years they've been in Yemen, and Yemen and Saudi Arabia have gotten along very well for years. I mean, the Bin Laden family are originally from Yemen, and they, you know, are the construction consortium that takes care of Mecca and Medina. So things have to be pretty bad for the House of Saud to, really ramp up and and be so bellicose towards a neighbor that they've been in exchange and have been merchants, Yemeni merchants in Saudi go back, to the caravan days of centuries. So it's a play for oil, and it's going to be really really difficult to see how Trump plays this with Iran, his stance on Iran, and Iran is giving support to the Houthi rebels, but it's not it's not as much as it's hyped up to be. We have the USS Cole headed back to Yemeni waters, which is kind of ironic since in 2000 they had the bombing of the Cole when they were in the port of Aden, but the Cole will be there to escort any freighters and to secure the waters so shipping can get through there without being fired upon by the Houthis, who are allied with the former Yemeni president, Ali Abdullah Saleh, and a large percentage of the Yemeni army. The Houthis are a specific form of Shia known as the Zadi form, and they're fiercely independent. And they, along with what's known as ACAP, Al Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula, are duking it out for the whole.
Let me get this straight. So it's basically the Houthis versus Al Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula, ACAP.
Yes.
All right. So it's another CIA proxy war.
Yes, it is. The Saudis will not put boots on the ground. It's they fear an uprising from their people so much that they will keep their army at home, and they're trying to work out a deal with General Sisi from Egypt, to get some boots on the ground.
Why would Al Sisi even help him?
Well, it's a good question. They're trying to. Sisi was very close to the House of Saud.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make it make it worthwhile for Egypt to get some, I guess you'd call them conscripts, pay really good rates for these guys to go off to fight. Other than the IMF giving I think it was, I don't remember the exact figure, but Egypt was given a fairly large loan not too long ago, but their economy is not doing too well either. So they have a large army, and there looks like they're ironing out a deal to get some Egyptian troops uh, in Yemen. There's been some covert actions. We had a group of U.S. Navy SEALs and some Emirati commandos.
That whole SEAL mission where they landed and the SEALs were like, wait a minute, it's like they knew we were coming.
Yeah, on January 29th, a lot of one SEAL died. There was a lot of civilian casualties, and it seemed like the intel was leaked somehow to the Houthi rebels were in waiting. So I'm upset, as most people are, that General Flynn had to fall on his sword due to this whole Russia thing. But he was, he had a very firm stance on Iran, and maybe down the line, that may radically change the foreign policy of the Trump administration in the Middle East, because it's going to be a tightrope of we have to, like Trump says, America first, and trying to focus on our domestic issues before getting wrapped up in being the police dog of the world. And other than some destroyer escorts, some drone footage, and some intel, I hope we don't put any boots on the ground or get caught up in this proxy war. And it's really between the Saudis and the Iranians to duke it out. It's not our fight.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. I think they've been duking around for the last 20, 30 years. Let sleeping dogs lie, as they say. It's a part of the world that its cultural intricacies and its religious intricacies is something that is so abstract and foreign to us. It's foolish for us to even get involved, man.
Yeah, exactly. And with Trump meeting Netanyahu today, I'm sure that's going to come up, along with Israel wants to build some of these man-made islands off the coast of Gaza.
Yeah.
So when Rex Tillerson made those comments to Beijing in regards to the islands that are in dispute and coming off very bellicose, it is, like you said the other day, a tactic that Trump uses to get people to the table.
Yeah.
And when he gets Beijing to the table, he knows that those islands are Chinese. The Japanese want to call them the Soikakus, but for us to buddy up any more than we have to with Japan is a train wreck economically.
Sure.
And to go after Beijing for these islands is a ruse to get Beijing to the table to talk about the Al Noor City project, because China has been in negotiations with Saudi Arabia to foot the bill for the entire project, $200 billion over 15 years to get the pipeline up and running. And be guaranteed a certain percentage of the oil that comes out of the pipeline that'll run through Yemen and Djibouti to the refineries in Saudi.
Yeah.
So that's where I think Tillerson made those comments to maybe get Beijing to the table to discuss growing their growing influence in the Middle East, and you know, the Silk, it has, you know, implications as far as the Silk Road goes. I mean, you'll be connecting Asia and Africa
Yeah.
via the bridge. As of right now, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are you know, on good terms on the outside, but on the inside, there's a lot of infighting. Nobody feels that um, Deputy Crown Prince and Minister of Defense Mohammed bin Salman has the experience to run the kingdom, and Mohammed bin Nayef, the legitimate crown prince, publicly is a much better choice. And typically, the Saudis have always appreciated age and wisdom, but for some reason, King Salman has his favorite son, whose mother is Syrian, which
Yes. How do you
opens
think
up
that's
a
going to
whole.
play out? The fact that, MBS, his mom is Syrian, and meaning
Yeah,
that King, how's that going to play out? That the next king in Saudi Arabia is half Syrian.
well, he's gonna want to put his mother's family back in power. Um,
Ah,
get rid of Assad and put his mother's family back in power in Syria.
I see
And
it now.
yeah, they would,
Be a Saudi
control.
proxy.
Yeah, it would be a Salafist Wahhabi um, caliphate in a
Yeah.
way, you know. So that's their goal, but they're running at deficits. The last king left a huge surplus and was a really good ruler, and that money has been squandered in a matter of 5 years. You know, King Salman took took the throne in 2012, I believe, and squandered their surplus in 5 years, uh, giving away a lot of money to pay for people a lot of young kids to go to school in America or Europe, and they don't really get to pick what they study. They have to study a hard science, engineering, whatever the government needs, but they could be, an extremely wealthy family, but if they get into Yale, the government will foot the bill for housing and tuition, and you see a lot of wealthy Saudis at all of the Ivy League schools, and they're not paying for it. So their King Solomon is doing a lot to keep his citizenry happy, but just like the United Arab Emirates had to introduce income taxation not that long ago, I think the Saudis will have to do the same.
Mm.
And most of the Saudi population having some type of job connected to the government, it's not going to go over very well.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree, man. It's there. I mean, I can see totally why. having Putin and the Russians step into Syria has really put the kibosh and has really screwed things up for the Saudis' visions of grandeur. You and I both know, we've talked about it before, how the Saudi oil wells are running dry, that the Ghawar well, the largest well that is in Saudi Arabia, the big one out of the six, is predominantly pumping water at this point instead of oil. So they need to diversify. They need to get some, not only diversify out of oil, but they also need some sort of energy deal. And we're seeing that played out in Yemen. And we're also seeing how the Saudis all of a sudden are closing up with the Qataris. They're working with their Qatari brothers and trying to get into the LNG business. And all of this, it's so funny, man. All of this, what's happening in Qatar, what's happening in Yemen, all of this ties back to Syria and the visions of grandeur they have there. That's what it looks like to me, man. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Trying to get at the Yemeni oil and trying to put Mohammed bin Salman's mother's family back in a ruling position in Syria and get rid of Assad would definitely solidify their hegemony over the region and make Iran think twice as far as their ambitions go. It's the whole thing is, Iran being Shia and the Saudis trying to establish this large Sunni Wahhabi Salafist. You could even call it a caliphate if they get Yemen and they get Syria. They'll opened up their sphere of influence quite a bit.
Yeah, got it. Absolutely, man. So as we got about 5 more minutes, man, why don't you give out your closing statements and how people could also follow your work? I know you're on Rogue Money right now, but if you have any social media, I don't know if you do, or any of the contact information.
I'm basically just I've been traveling extensively and finally got myself back up to the New York area and am writing for Rogue Money and am just a journalist and write for several other publications, but that's on a non-disclosure basis. I ghostwrite quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I think Yemen is going to be the test of the Trump administration, and it's going to be interesting to see how he is able to resolve the conflict, or if it escalates, how he decides to handle it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with you, man. How he handles it and what our involvement with Yemen, these are all key factors. These are all the catalysts that's going to really dictate exactly what this new administration is going to be doing and what the Middle East policy is. We need to pull back out of the sandbox. The sandbox has been an absolute sandstorm for the last several decades, for lack of a better word. And I think for us to pull back and not being so involved militarily is a good thing. For us to seek our own energy independence, for us to seek trade with all nations is a good thing. And I hope that would be the course that we take, man.
Yes, there's no reason the Silk Road needs to stop in London.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Le Pen win, and with Xi Jinping and Trump and Le Pen and Putin to just focus on the fact that there is a global depression. It's you know, I don't know anyone that's doing well.
Yeah.
There's millennials that are, you know, baristas with master's degrees, and it's a travesty. You have to go on Craigslist to try to find a career.
Yeah.
It it's hitting home. It's hitting everywhere. And it's so hard to find real news. A lot of people come home from work and they just turn on the TV. So unless they, you know, get get on the get on the computer and find a podcast like this and get some real news, a lot of people are just misinformed
Yeah.
and just living paycheck to paycheck. And it's a sad state of affairs. I hope Trump will be able to put America first and get us back on the road to recovery after the last 16 years of a hot mess.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Prince, thank you so much, my man. I'd love to have you on as a regular and just come in and drop some knowledge on us, more often, especially on the Middle East. Thank you, bro, for being on. CJ, do you have any closing words or questions for the Prince?
No, great interview. Really appreciate the update. I know our listeners, I've been wondering myself as well how everything through the change is going to happen with the new administration. So really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely, man. Maybe we could do like a monthly Middle Eastern update and we could really promote your work and all the other things that you do.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm available. And now that I'm finally settled in, you can expect some more articles posted on the Rogue Money site on a more consistent basis from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much all for listening in. This is V, the Guerrilla Economist, with the Prince and the one and only Uncanny One, CJ. We are over and out. Take it away, CJ.